My neighbor is acting erratically over me building a fence in the front of my house.
We used to get along great with our next-door neighbor. For context, she is an older Polish woman who lives alone and is very OCD about her grass. She will pick up leaves as they fall down from the tree and pick up leaves off her grass, even if it rained. Anyways, she has a front fence that she didn't run all down her property line. She stopped it at the front so her whole right side of her home is exposed next to ours, then picked up the fence when her backyard begins. We had more than a few times where strangers would enter the side of our house and actually try and enter our home. So my husband decided to put up a front fence. At the time, my neighbor was redoing her backyard fence, and she knew my husband also wanted to do his backyard fence, so she recommended her guy. As she followed up to see if my husband called the guy to get the work, my husband told her that he did, and that he also asked the guy for a quote for the front as well. She immediately lost it. Since then, she has been acting so crazy. It started with her calling the alderman, and she wrongfully accused us of taking her land. The alderman came and spoke with us and sided with me and my husband. The problem is that she wants to use our front walkway that's on the side of our house to access her right side of her property, the side that she didn't fence. So she fenced herself out and has always just went on our property to access her side. She's mad because with our fence, she can't just walk in and go to her side of her house anymore. We told her we would give her a key, and she said no, since she accused us of stealing her land. We didn't feel comfortable about allowing her to come and go off our property anymore, but she didn't care. She called a handyman to install a security camera, and he worked on our side of the property, and she didn't ask. I asked the guy to please inform her for any future work she will need to ask us for permission before she enters our property. The security camera was to watch us because she was so paranoid we would build a fence. This Saturday, we had the company begin work, and she totally lost it. She harassed the workers, telling them to stop work, and she was accusing us of stealing land. She threatened to report them to the city and to call the inspector on us. My husband had to stay outside with guys as they worked, and when he went in, she would come back out and harass them. Then she called the police. 4 police cars came. I don't know what she told them, but it was not the truth, because the cops sided with us and told her to stay inside and not bother us. Then, Sunday, she paces looking at our fence posts, staring. She looked at our fence posts like 10 times on Sunday, and then she was pacing our backyard, and we have her on camera, just staring and pacing and starting in. So creepy. Then Monday, she is walking and starting again, and she stops on of our neighbors and starts complaining to him about our fence right in front of our house. She continues pacing and staring through the day. Then, later that Monday, a guy comes and she walks him to our house and he starts looking at our posts. My husband came out this time and asked the guy who was and why he was interested in looking at our property. He told us that he is a realtor and a good friend of hers, and he came because she called him, telling him that we stole her property from her and accused us of putting posts on her property, which was all lies. We immediately showed him our proof, and he agreed with us and tried to mediate with her, explaining that we are legally able to build and that she can extend her fence so she is not blocked out. She just said no, and didn't want to do that, so my husband just left. We made sure everything was recorded. Then today, she came outside and stared at our property again, just pacing. She did the same in the backyard. Then she went to the front and started flagging down neighbors who she never talks to and starts to complain about our fence, calling us bad people and that we are stealing her land. She is acting so malicious. What do I do? It's crazy update. So I called the police to see what she accused us of on Saturday. They said that she alleged we were encroaching on her property and blocking her egress. The claim was noted as false by the police. Here's a rough drawing of me and my neighbor's property. Hopefully it helps better visualize.
The author left a layout of the property. We've put it on the screen for you, so you can take a look.
Update. It snowed, and the neighbor came outside with hair curlers in her hair, wearing pajamas and slippers. No jacket at all, so she was clearly in a hurry. She went straight to the front of our house and just stood there staring at our fence posts while talking on the phone. I'm not sure what information she was trying to get by staring like that. Maybe she needed our address. It looks like she's trying to call someone else on us. At this point, she's completely losing it, because she knows the fence will be finished as soon as the weather gets better. The author explains the layout of the property. We've also added the second image she provided on the screen, so you can take a look. She says the drawing might not be very clear, so here's a simpler explanation. The neighbor has a tall iron fence at the front of her property. It runs all the way down the left side of her house. But on the right side, she stopped the fence at the beginning of the house and curved it inward. Because of that, the entire right side of her house is left open almost all the way to the back. Then the fence starts again near the garage. She's upset because with our new front fence, she can no longer walk across our property to access that side of her house. Every day, she comes outside, stares at our fence, and even calls people over just to complain about it. Important comments. Comment 1. How old is she? Should Adult Protective Services be notified because of her sudden, erratic behavior? Author's response. She's probably around 70 to 80 years old. I've thought about calling them too, but I'm not sure yet. I'm kind of on the fence about it. I want to wait and see if this continues or escalates. But yeah, her behavior right now is definitely strange. Comment 2. It might be worth considering. Dementia can escalate out of nowhere. One day someone is completely normal and the next they're reacting aggressively to things that aren't even real. Does she have any family that could step in? She's already been told by multiple authorities that she's wrong, but she keeps going. Author's response. Thank you, that actually makes a lot of sense. It really does seem like something like that could be happening. She doesn't have much family, just one sister who visits sometimes, and a son who lives in Poland. What worries me is that if I report her, she might try to get revenge and file a false report about our kids to child services. I wouldn't put it past her because she lies a lot. For example, she once told us her tenant assaulted her. We believed her and called the police, but when the police came, it turned out she just wanted to kick them out because they weren't paying rent. She even pretended she was selling her house just to force them out. Comment 3. You should probably get a land survey done to make sure everything is actually on your property. Author's response. We already did. Everything is 100% on our property. Actually, her new back fence is a few centimeters onto our land, and her fence on the other side is leaning onto her neighbor's property. So, in reality, she's the one taking land, not us. She's accusing us of doing exactly what she's doing herself. We've had a survey done, and our fence is fully within our property line. The reason she's making these claims now is because she basically fenced herself out of that side. It's about 13 inches of land covered in rocks. She could have extended her fence properly, especially when she rebuilt her backyard fence this summer. But she chose not to. The truth is, she just doesn't want us to have a fence because she's been using our property for years to access her side. She feels entitled to it and likes being able to do work there without asking us. We never said anything before because we had a good relationship. But looking back, we should have set boundaries earlier. She was clearly taking advantage and acting like she owned our property. Comment 4. Doesn't she have another way to get into her property? Like a front gate? Wouldn't it be easier to just build her own access instead of all this? Author's response. She does have her own front entrance and her own front fence, but that side of her house is just rocks and about 13 inches of unfenced space. There's no proper access. She says she doesn't have the money, but she just built a brand new back fence. She just doesn't want to, because then she wouldn't have enough space on that side to move around or have work done. Comment 5. Do you have security cameras around your house? Author's response. Yes, we do. That's how we've been able to catch all of her creepy behavior. We try to avoid her and just monitor everything through the cameras to make sure she doesn't come onto our property. When our concrete posts were first installed, she came outside and started raking the grass in front of her house really aggressively. It looked very strange. Then she came over and started raking our concrete on our property. She's clearly very angry. And when we ask her to stay off our property, she turns around and says in front of the neighbors, "Leave me alone, you're bothering me," trying to play the victim, even though she's the one causing all the problems. At this point, I told my husband to record every conversation and always stay within view of the cameras when talking to her. Comment 6. Why did you have the workers communicate with her instead of talking to her directly? Author's response. Because her main language is Polish, she barely speaks English. Luckily, all the workers from the fence company, including the owner, speak Polish. The crazy part is, everything has been explained to her multiple times in her own language, and she still just says, "No, no," or "nie." I've even started learning a little Polish myself to try to communicate better. but everyone who talks to her says the same thing. She's acting irrationally. Even the police officer who spoke Polish with her said the same thing. About the cameras. Author's response: yes, we do have cameras. That's how we've been able to capture all of her strange behavior. We try to avoid interacting with her and just monitor everything through the cameras to make sure she doesn't come onto our property. When the concrete posts were first installed, she came outside and started aggressively raking the grass. It looked really strange. Then she walked over and started raking our concrete on our property. She's clearly very angry, and when we ask her to stay off our property, she turns around and says in front of the neighbors, "Leave me alone, you're bothering me," trying to play the victim, even though she's the one causing all the problems. At this point, I told my husband to record every conversation and always stay within camera view when talking to her. Why they communicated through the worker's author's response: her main language is Polish, and she barely speaks English. Luckily, all the workers from the fence company, including the owner, speak Polish. The crazy part is, everything has been explained to her multiple times in her own language, and she still just responds with no, no, or ni. I've even started learning a bit of Polish myself to try to communicate better, but everyone who talks to her says the same thing. She's acting irrationally. Even the police officer who spoke Polish with her said the same thing. About a possible legal action. Author's response: I'm most likely going to file a harassment claim. I'm willing to give her one more chance. If she does anything else, I will go through with it. I already have a lot of video and audio evidence of everything. I just need to be careful because she lies constantly. Now she's even claiming that a post in the alley on her side was installed by my husband and wants him to remove it. But we showed proof from Google Maps. That post has been there for over 20 years. We only bought the property in 2018. She's lived here for 30 years, so she knows she's lying. She's just looking for anything she can use against us. Why she thinks we're stealing her land. Author's response: from what we understand, she believes that because we're building a fence, she won't be able to walk across our property anymore to get to her side. That side of her house is just a narrow strip of land, about 13 inches wide, covered in rocks. She likes to clean leaves there and dig a trench to keep snow from touching the house. But if she had built her fence properly, she would have to squeeze through that space and wouldn't be able to do those things easily. We even offered her a key so she could still pass through when needed, but she refused and instead started calling people on us to try to stop the project. What's interesting is that on the other side of her house, she completely fenced off her other neighbor, and he can't even access his own side of the house. She only cares about herself. Location. This is all taking place in Illinois in the U.S., not far from Evanston. Update: our fence has been up for a week and a half. The neighbor surprisingly did not bother the workers when they put the panels up. I was so surprised, so that's why I didn't really do an update, because I was like, okay, this is over. Finally, she must have come to her senses. Yeah, I was wrong. On Tuesday, I was coming home from picking up my child from school, and some man ran out his car and shouted if I was the owner of the home. I asked who he was, and he stated he was from the city building and code enforcement, while also briefly flashing his ID at me. I then proceeded to tell him that I am the owner and why was he here. He stated that he received a complaint about a building violation and that our fence is too tall and we must cut it down from 6 feet to 5 feet. Keep in mind my neighbor's fence is taller than ours BTW. I told the inspector that 3 licensed contractors that we contacted all informed us we didn't need a permit, but that if they were wrong, we would gladly comply, of course, and/or apply for the needed permit. He stated that there is no possible way the city would approve it, and I told him we will work with the city and find a solution. We don't want to cut corners and want to do it right. My husband then comes out and gets informed on what's going on, and then my husband asks the inspector for his email or business card so we can follow up and work together to fix it. The guy refused to give us any card or email to follow up with him. He told my husband, "All the information is on the city website. Why do you need my information for?" He was very rude. I know how to talk with people, so I told him, "Look, I get you come across a lot of people who argue back and give you a hard time, so you're on guard, but I assure you we don't want to argue and we want to fix this issue." He then calmed down and told us he has kids too and he understands why we need a fence, etc. He then told us he would give us 48 hours to get a permit, and then he left. Once I got home, I reviewed the camera footage, and the inspector entered our property and did not ring the doorbell to try and speak with us. He just trespassed and was walking around looking at our property. He didn't measure anything. Nothing. So I began to get suspicious. I then remembered when my neighbor threatened us and the workers saying she had an inspector friend and she was going to report us. On top of that, why didn't the inspector want to give me any information to follow up? So weird. Then he tells me to get a permit in 48 hours. He didn't even tell me which one. And if he said the city would not approve it, why didn't he tell me to apply in 48 hours? Things just seemed off. IDK. So then I went to do my research. I contacted my alderman's office and asked for assistance in applying for a permit. I wanted to make sure we did the right steps. After we apply for our permit, I asked the representative if they could look up the complaint for me because the interaction with the inspector seemed suspicious. She agreed and looks up the report. There was a report made 17 days ago by our neighbor, before our fence panels were up, that our fence was not on our property line. The report said nothing about fence height. She also told me there was no inspector assigned to the case and that it was still open pending investigation. So that's weird. IDK, maybe he was legit and didn't update the case, but it's all not adding up. So the alderman agrees this is weird and states that they are going to get someone from downtown involved to speak with my neighbor because she is harassing us and it's just too much. The report she made was false. Our fence posts are on our property lines. We have our plat survey that proves all of this, in addition to all the other things listed in my other Reddit posts that she has done. So today I'm just minding my own business like I usually do, and I get a notification on my camera. I see someone sticking their hand through my fence, pointing at my back, and moving down my fence, repeatedly doing the same thing. So I go outside and calmly ask the women, "Do you have any questions about my fence that I can help you with? I see that you're sticking your hand through and pointing." She tells me, "I'm your neighbor down the block. I was just speaking with your next door neighbor and she has a problem with your fence." I let her know that the neighbor's claims are bogus and that we now have a permit for the height of our fence, and I have a survey of our property proving we are on our property line. I told her that the neighbor is crazy and if she has any concerns to please speak with me. As I turn, I see my neighbor in her bushes by her door. She was outside the whole time and stopped the neighbor as she was walking her dog to complain about our fence and spread false claims again. Then the neighbor leaves and immediately stands and stares at our house, looking at the permit displayed on our front door. This is getting crazy. And I really didn't want to do tit for tat, but I reported her illegal basement apartment, which is not a false allegation because her zoning does not allow for a basement apartment. She also does not have 2 entrances. I really didn't want to do it, but she is really pushing me to become a person I don't want to be. I want this all to be over already, praying she can finally understand reality soon. I will update if anything else happens.
Additional information. The author later received a translation of the audio conversation between the neighbor and the man she brought over. According to the author, the man was actually trying to calm things down and explain that building the fence would make things safer and more reasonable. The conflict comes down to the fact that the neighbor technically owns a few inches of land near her garage, and she's using that as a reason to block the fence from being fully closed. In reality, it doesn't benefit her at all. It's just the only argument she has. The author also points out that if needed, they can simply build the fence strictly along their own property line. We're not going to include the full transcript of the conversation since it's made up of fragmented lines that are hard to follow without context. But the overall idea is this. The neighbor keeps repeating that it's hers, refuses to discuss anything, and insists that no one has the right to do anything without her permission. Meanwhile, the man tries multiple times to explain that she created the problem herself and that the fence would actually make things safer. But she doesn't listen, refuses to cooperate, and says she's going to keep reporting them.
Update number 2, 2.5 weeks later. I know it's been a few weeks since my last update. A few of my neighbors actually found my Reddit post, so to protect the privacy and security of myself and my neighbor, I removed my old Reddit posts because there was pictures and videos that I didn't want getting shared to neighborhood platforms. I mainly made my posts to vent and get feedback, and didn't intend on it getting so popular it made it around the world and back to my block LOL. But I do appreciate the support and advice from everyone. Updates, so a lot has happened in the past 2 weeks. To start, the workers came back to paint our fence and weld some mesh on the fence. Our neighbor freaked out and thought the workers welded our fence to her post. She called our mediator, representative from the alderman's office. She came out to check and immediately saw that we did not connect her fence post to ours. Then our neighbor got mad and started demanding for us to personally show her our fence plans and permits. We had our permit on our door. She got more mad and used a racial slur towards me and my family. And keep in mind, she said the racial slur about us to the representative of the alderman's office, so it has been documented. That same day, an officer from the city department from Building and Code Enforcement showed up to our house again. It was a different guy this time. He told us that there was a report made alleging we were building a whole new garage without a permit. We haven't changed our garage at all. It's the same as when we bought our home, and it's clear to anyone it was not just built. The building inspector immediately closed the case. At this point, our neighbor is being malicious and is making false reports to harass us. What really worries me is that if we ever want to sell our home, these reports stay on record, even though they are false and dismissed. After this, we did a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, for any 311 reports for our address. She made 3 reports to the city DOB, Department of Buildings, all made in March and all made before our fence panels were even put up. She alleged we built a new garage, that our fence posts was not on our property line, and that we had installed a side fence without building permit. All false allegations. Keep in mind we had just the posts up March 18th, and our panels didn't get put on till April 5th. We also didn't build the side fence she is talking about. Yet. So she did a complaint in advance, assuming we have no permit. Can't even make this stuff up, it's insane. Then she made a false allegation to a police officer and told them my husband was yelling and screaming at her and throwing his hands up, intimidating her during a time she was talking to her neighbors. Then the said neighbor walks to her car. At the same moment, her and the cop are talking, and my neighbor points, telling the cop to go ask the woman, our neighbor from across the street. The cop goes over and talks to her, and the woman tells the cop my husband didn't do what was alleged. Then the cop goes back over and tells my neighbor that the witness to the alleged incident says nothing like that happened. I also had the video and audio recording of that conversation. My husband went outside because she involved 3 neighbors at this point, calling them over, talking about our fence and us. He went outside to talk to the other people, and not her. Even his body language in the video was not aggressive, and he was not talking to her directly at all. After he told the neighbors what is happening, our side, he left and let them continue talking. Yet she wants to actually lie and try and put him in jail. So glad I have every interaction recorded. Same day, she gets very erratic and upset that things didn't go her way, that she comes outside while I'm outside and starts singing/humming like an opera singer. She has never did this before, and it was just weird. I ignore her as I always do and just let her be. Then she decides to go inside and get her purse to pretend like she is going somewhere and goes across the street, intentionally avoiding crossing in front of the neighbor who told the truth to the cops. They were outside on their porch. I assume she is now upset with them because they told the truth. Then she goes and talks to their next-door neighbor who was just watering her grass. She proceeds to talk about our fence and us to them. I saw it all plain as day because I was outside. I let it go because I want to avoid her as I always do, but it was so annoying. Then she leaves, and literally 5 minutes later, she comes back in her house. She just went around the block and pretended to leave to just talk to another neighbor about us, and just slander us and paint us as bad people. I honestly cannot understand this behavior. Then, same day, she calls someone over to come look at our backyard. I literally can't catch a break with her. We aren't doing anything wrong. Our fence is permitted by the city. She is just mad that she can't walk down our property as she did for 28 years to reach the side of her house that she fenced herself out from, and she can fix, but she refuses and instead blames us. Important comments. Comment 1. You should talk to a lawyer and send her a cease and desist letter. If she continues, you can report her for harassment, try to get a restraining order, or even press charges. Author's response. We are already working with a lawyer. We tried mediation and even contacted Adult Protective Services, but she's not willing to take responsibility or accept any help. We really did our best to be understanding and try to resolve things, but at this point it's very clear she doesn't want any resolution. Instead, She chooses to harass us, slander us, and make false reports to both city services and the police. We have proof of her lies. And even when she's confronted with it, she still denies everything, even when it's on video. You just can't reason with someone like that. Comment 2. Call. Adult. Protective. Services. She's not rational. Is there anything she could even do to you that's worse than what she's already doing? She clearly needs help. Author's response. We already did, and unfortunately, they can't do much. She refused help and wouldn't provide any contact information for her family. At this point, she's only going to keep escalating because she's angry. She believes we need her permission to do anything on our own property. She's becoming more and more bitter. For example, yesterday my kids were drawing with chalk on the sidewalk inside our fenced area. This morning, she used her hose through her gate to spray it off. Onto our property. I honestly don't even want to understand the level of hatred she has developed toward us. It's just disturbing.
That's where the story ends. There haven't been any updates since. Let me know what you think about this situation in the comments. Have you ever dealt with difficult or unreasonable neighbors? I'd be really interested to hear your stories. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it. See you in the next videos.